Oh, by the way, we're watching more PragerU.
Our prisons are crowded with people who shouldn't be there, the victims of a racist justice system. This is the popular progressive narrative.
Mm-hmm.
But it's wrong in every respect.
Is it?
Dangerously wrong.
Okay.
The U.S. does have a very large prison population.
No, it doesn't have a very large prison population. It has the largest prison population per capita in the entire world.
Not because too many innocent people are incarcerated, but because too many people commit serious, usually violent crimes.
Okay, so if that was true, if you fucking all right, so let's say that's just 100% true. There's not. I can't poke a single hole in that. That would mean that we are the most violent country on earth, right? Like if you're gonna say that everyone who's in jail deserves to be there because they committed a serious violent crime, or that the vast majority are there because they committed a serious violent crime, and we have the highest prison population per capita on the entire fucking earth, then what you're saying is that we have the most violent people anywhere in the fucking world, which in that case, we should probably look at like what underlying social circumstances are leading us to be so disproportionately violent to anywhere else on fucking earth, right? So that just presents a whole new fucking problem to deal with.
With rare exceptions, that's why most people are imprisoned in America.
Rare exceptions.
Period. Full stop. Before presenting the facts, let me add these caveats.
Okay.
It's unacceptable that any innocent person is behind bars.
Okay.
Punishment must always fit, not exceed the crime.
Okay.
We should do everything we can to reduce the rates of recidivism, committing more crime after release.
Sure.
And finally, everyone in prison should be treated humanely.
Yeah,
but let's not fool ourselves.
That's the Constitution that says that.
That our prisons are full of people who shouldn't be there.
Okay,
That's
let's
simply
not do
the
it.
case. Let's start with those convicted of drug offenses, the source of so much of the mass incarceration myth. While it's true that about half of federal prisoners are incarcerated on drug charges, federal inmates constitute only about 12% of the American prison population.
Okay.
Almost 9 of every 10 prisoners.
So, I mean, yeah, what I'm getting from that is who cares about them? Look, yeah, sure, half of federal inmates are there for drug charges, but, you know, who gives a shit? They're a small percentage of the overall prison population, so why care about them? Why even care that they're in prison for a nonviolent offense?
Prison inmates are in state facilities, and very few of them, less than 15%, are there for drug-related offenses.
So wait, 15? Is that like? Is that not a fucking significant number? Is 15% just like, oh well, you know, only 15% of the fucking, you know, prisons and state facilities are there for drugs? So 15%. That's okay. So how many people are in prison? Oh wait, you know, well actually, I got a chart here. So here we go. Here's what we got. Let's just zoom in a little bit. So here's this slice of the pie here is federal prisons and jails. And we have here some people who are there for immigration violations. It's about 16,000 prisoners. Drugs, we got about 22,000 prisoners. Other 22,000 prisoners. Others are there because public order. I don't know what that means. Violent, only 13,000. Property crimes, 10,000. Drugs, 78,000, and another 1,000 for other. So that's federal prisons and jails right there. Then you have this giant piece of the pie, which is the state prisons. You have public order, which they break it down to weapons, 55,000. Other public order, 74,000. Driving under the influence, 25,000. You have drugs. It's about 191,000 overall. So drug possession, that's 45,000 people. Other drugs, about 145,000 people. Then you have people who are in there for property crimes. That's about 227,000 people, and that breaks down to 26,000 cases of fraud, 122,000 cases of burglary, 44,000 cases of theft, 10,000 cases of car theft, other property crimes, about 25,000. So of the people in state prison, a bunch are in there for public order violations. A bunch are in there for drug violations. A bunch are in there for property violations. And then about 713,000 are in there for violent crimes like murder, manslaughter, rape and sexual assault, robbery, I'm assuming armed robbery, assault, and I guess 42,000 other sort of violent crimes. So we have here these people, probably most of them should be in jail. Some of these property people probably belong in jail. Some of them probably don't. Most of these drug people probably don't belong in jail. A lot of these public order people probably don't belong in jail. So here's the local jails. You see how many people are in local jails? Not in prisons, just in local jails somewhere. We have 149,000 violent, 117,000 property, 120,000 drug, 82,000 public order, 3,000 other, violent 34,000, property 40,000, drug. This is of the okay. So that's of the local jail stuff. Some of it's non-convicted. So that's 470,000 people who are in jail who have not been convicted of shit. They haven't been convicted. They've just been charged. 470, like 500,000 people in jail have not been convicted of a crime in the land of the free, United States of America. Of those who have actually been convicted of something, 34,000 violent, 40,000 property, 37,000 drug, public order 49,000, other 1,000. And then you have this little section of the pie that's really kind of tiny, which here's the youth detention, like juvie and shit. Technical violations 6,700, drugs 2,100. Just says person 1,800. I don't know what the fuck that means. Property 9,600, public order 5,600. You have this little tiny sliver here. Territorial prisons 11,000 people. No breakdown of why they're there. Immigration detention, you got about 42,000 people detained that way. Involuntary commitment, that's basically people who, it's like their families or friends or whatever have put them in a fucking mental institution. It's about 22,000. Indian country, they've got about 2,500 inmates. And then military prisoners, about 1,300, So looking at this information, it's pretty clear that there's a lot of people who are in jail who should not be. A lot of people in state prisons that shouldn't be in state prisons. A lot of people in local jails that haven't even been convicted, even though the Constitution guarantees them the right to a speedy trial. They're just being held because they can't pay fucking bail. It's 500,000 fucking people, but, whatever. Federal prisons and jails, shit ton of those people are just there for drug violations, almost half. We got a bunch of people in youth detention for reasons that don't even fucking make sense, like technical violations. What the fuck is that? Got a bunch of people detained just for being immigrants. I don't even know what the fuck a territorial prison is. I'll have to look that one up. We got a bunch of people committed into mental institutions and shit. And then I guess a little smattering of people in military prison. So a shit ton of these people, in my opinion, based on my particular set of values, probably do not belong incarcerated. There's probably other ways of dealing with the crimes that they've committed. So with that all being said, let's just proceed in this video, recognizing the tremendous amount of shit that it's full of.
Murder, 14%. Rape or sexual assault, 13%. Robbery, 13%. Aggravated or simple assault, 11%. And burglary, 9%.
Okay.
In short, violent criminals make up the clear majority of the state prison population.
Okay, so wait a minute. let me grab a little calculator here for a second. Sucks my fucking... I can't open the calculator without minimizing this window. And then if we add in the 15 of drug-related charges, that's 75%. Why are we not addressing why the other 25% are in jail here? Is there some reason why we're leaving out 25% of the total? Seems like we might want to mention that. I don't know.
Population. What's more, drug offenders who do end up in prison don't actually serve very much time. Almost half are released within a year. The truth is that most criminals probably...
Yeah, well, that's still 15% of the prison population, so obviously they're cycling through pretty quick. And, maybe a lot of them only serve a year in prison, but we see that a lot of them just, are held in fucking county jails and shit, waiting for fucking trial.
Spend less time in prison than you think, even for the most violent crimes. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, almost 40% of released state prisoners served less than a year in prison.
Okay.
Even 20% of murderers and nearly 60% of those convicted of rape or sexual assault served less than 5 years in prison. What explains the short stays? Answer: plea bargaining. Most prosecutions never go to court.
Right.
Instead, a deal is made between the defendant's attorney and the prosecutor to avoid going to trial. These negotiations often involve the offender agreeing to plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence.
Yeah, well, you're kind of leaving out the fact that a lot of the people who are taking these plea deals are actually innocent, but they're broke, so they can't fucking hire a goddamn... so they got to go with a public defender. I have an article here on public defenders, by the way. Poor people rely on public defenders who are too overworked to defend them. Part of the reason there's so many plea deals is because the caseloads of these public defenders are literally so gigantic that they can't go to trial. I mean, so they strongly urge their clients to take plea deals and do not actually give them a legal defense. So the most they can do for them is be like, well, look, we can get you like, we get you a small, you could go to jail for like 20 years or 30 years or whatever if you get convicted, but they're willing to make a deal. If you plead guilty, you only get 5. And so even an innocent person who hears that is like, fuck, maybe I'm better off taking the 5 rather than going to fucking trial, especially when I can't afford a good lawyer. I just have a public defender who's basically telling me that I shouldn't even fucking go to trial. And, why wouldn't the public defender be saying that? Because the public defenders are overworked and have fucking shit ton of clients. Let's see if I can find an exact statistic on that. So 80% of those charged with felonies are broke. And as a result, most of them end up with public defenders. In Florida in 2009, the annual felony caseload per attorney was over 500 felonies and 2,225 misdemeanors. You really think that anybody, even the best lawyer on earth, could not possibly defend that many people in a year? So all they can literally do, that's like more than, how many is that a day? How many cases is that a day? I got my calculator here. Might as well fucking figure it out. 500 felonies plus 2,225 being accused of misdemeanors. That's 2,725. Divide that by 365, which is the number of days in a year, and you got an average of about 7.4 people a day. But of course, public defenders don't work 7 days a week. So you got to fucking take off weekends. So it's probably more like, I don't know, 8 or 9 people a day that you're expected to defend. How are you supposed to fucking have a robust legal defense in that kind of system? It's no wonder people take these fucking plea deals. And I guarantee you that a shit ton of the people who take these plea deals are absolutely fucking innocent, but they don't want to risk going to trial and getting a fucking 30-year sentence with a shitty public defender who's supposed to defend fucking 8 other people that day. Boo. Garbage. Bad system. Bad. Back to the fucking video.
Or dropping or downgrading the most serious charges. As a result, a prisoner's conviction record often understates the crime that landed him behind bars in the first place. For example, an armed burglar who, when arrested, was found to be in possession of illegal drugs might go to prison not for his worst crime, the armed burglary, but for a plea bargain charge of, say, trespass and drug possession. But the media and the activists don't tell us about this rather important detail. Instead,
well, you're leaving out some pretty fucking important details, too, as we already gone over.
Instead, all we hear about is the poor fellow who's serving time for selling a small amount of cocaine.
What about the poor fellow who didn't do anything but just got picked up and charged with a crime and didn't have the money to defend himself? How about that poor fellow? Can we talk about him? Or is that too inconvenient?
This assumes, of course, that the convicted criminal does any time at all. Studies done by the Justice Department show that...
Well, they're definitely going to do some time because they're going to fucking be in jail waiting for trial, unable to pay bail, probably for a fucking extraordinarily long time.
That only about 40% of felony convictions lead to a prison sentence. Yes, many are given probation, sentenced to home confinement, or given credit for time served in pretrial detention.
Yeah, credit for time served, which means time in jail, which means they were incarcerated, which means that what you're saying is false. Right? Right.
But most of the time, convicted criminals don't go to prison. Do we really want even more criminals out on the street?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I don't want violent criminals that pose a fucking, threat to my safety on the street. But, some guy who's like, he got fucking, he DUI'd or whatever. Take away his license. If you catch him again, yeah, sure, put him in fucking jail. But if you found him doing the DUI once, just take away his fucking license. You're not allowed to drive a car for a year. And if you catch him driving, then maybe he can go to fucking some kind of jail sentence or something. Right now I know that there's a lot of fucking people who fucking get DUIs over and over again and don't even get that fucking shit going. But I mean, like, if you want to take it seriously, I don't want to if someone committed mail fraud or something, like, do something to limit their access to the fucking materials of that. Make them pay financial restitutions. Put them in some kind of fucking debt to the people that they victimized. There's financial restitutions. There's other fucking measures you can do that don't make them wards of the state. But unfortunately, what this video fails to want to address is the private prison industry that gets money from taxpayers the more people are locked up in fucking American prisons. Doesn't want to address that.
Activists say yes. Scholars at the left-leaning Brennan Center have called for an immediate 40% reduction in the number of inmates.
At least. Yeah, reasonable. Completely reasonable. Why should we... Look, our country is all about freedom, right? That's the fucking narrative. It's right there in our fucking national anthem. For the land of the free. And it's right there in the national anthem. Every fucking American, you ask them, like, what's so great about America? I love the freedom. I love the freedom of America. At least we're free. Proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. Give me liberty or give me death. Like, this is so fucking hardwired into the DNA of American rhetoric, the idea of freedom. We prize freedom more than other countries. We're all about freedom. Yet we have the highest prison population on the face of the goddamn earth. You're damn right we should reduce fucking the prison population by 40% at least.
CNN host Van Jones, founder of the #Cut50 initiative, tops that. He wants a 50% reduction.
Good.
But if the activists get their way, the cost would be high and would likely be paid by the most vulnerable.
Wait, the costs are going to be high to let people out of fucking state-funded prisons? You realize that prisons are paid for with tax dollars and that the profits are going, in many cases, to private prison owners, like people who literally have a profit incentive to lock people away in prison, right? You realize that a lot of people stuck in county jails is because they can't pay cash bail. So that they're basically stuck in a fucking limbo. They can't fucking be, they're trying to get, they're stuck in jail, awaiting trial. They could get out if they could raise up some bail money, but they can't because they're broke. So they're stuck in fucking local county jails, overburdening those systems, also paid for by tax dollars. Instead of being out working as productive members of society, they're in fucking jail. And we're footing the bill for that. So how the fuck is it going to be more expensive to not imprison them?
Most crimes are committed by a small fraction of the population who primarily victimize their own communities. Here's an all-too-common example. In the spring of 2019, 2 men were charged with the murder of a Chicago woman who was shot while holding her baby.
Let's do this anecdotal shit, right? Let's take one case in isolation and try to draw some fucking conclusion from it. That sounds good.
One of the men charged had 9 felony convictions, including for a 2004 second-degree murder charge. A January 2017 University of Chicago crime lab study found that on average, someone arrested for a homicide or shooting in that city had nearly 12 prior arrests.
Wow. It's so shocking that someone who is a criminal that shoots somebody would have a criminal record. I am astonished by this fact.
Almost 20% had more than 20. If we cut prison rolls by 20, 40, or 50%, it won't be politicians and media celebrities living in gated communities who will pay the price. It will be the law-abiding citizens and underserved neighborhoods struggling to get ahead who will pay. When it comes to debates about criminal justice policy, These people, not criminals, should come first. I'm Rafael Mengual, Deputy Director of Legal Policy at the Manhattan Institute.
Wait, so these people, not criminals, should come... Wait, hold on. I don't know if you know this, but if you commit a crime that does not, like, forfeit your constitutional rights, that does not make you, like, no longer a citizen of the United States of America, you're still entitled constitutionally to a speedy trial and to a legal defense. And right now, we don't have those basic benchmarks in our system. You have public defenders who are so overburdened that they can't possibly provide a legal defense to somebody. And you have a system of cash bail where like 500,000 people are in jail that have not been convicted of any crime and are probably going to be there for quite some time waiting for any sort of conviction to happen, at which point they're probably going to take a plea deal because that's what their public defender is going to tell them to do, rather than providing them with their constitutionally mandated right to a free trial, or I'm sorry, a fair trial. So I don't really understand this. If you don't have the right to a fair trial and you don't have the right to legal representation, then our entire criminal justice system is broken just on a fucking strict constitutional level at that point. I'm not even talking about some pie in the sky system that ought to be. I'm talking about the stuff that's just in the U.S. Constitution, written by the founding fathers, that you conservatives fucking jack off to every night. Those guys laid out those ground rules. We're not even meeting that fucking standard. So as long as you haven't even addressed that stuff, and as long as you're allowing private corporations to benefit in terms of a profit motive from incarcerating people, this entire system is just a fucking farce. So fuck you, fuck your misleading statistics, fuck your one-sided approach to this issue, and I'm willing to bet there's probably some private prisons paying for a little piece of that PragerU pie. Wouldn't shock me.